folks, this is Space Base. This is a game that if you've played, the game that I've played that I feel like is comparable to it is Maki Koro, and it's the kind of dice idea of you roll dice and then depending on what cards you have out, you get to do different things with that. And so that's something I really enjoy, that it's a dice-driven game, and so you don't know what's going to happen, but you do know the probabilities of the dice. You can kind of go for certain numbers and say, I'm rolling 2 dice, and so I know the 7 is going to be the most common thing between the 2 dice. But in this game too, you do have some extra decision-making, where when you roll the dice, you can choose to either add them together and choose whatever number that is and what effect that gives you, or you can choose to split them up. And so if I roll a 6 and a 6, I could take 2 6s or the 12, which in general, the higher up you get in this game, the more powerful cards you're going to get, because it's really not that likely that you're going to roll a 12. So I do like that. You can't see much on this picture right here, but you can see there's kind of these different tracks, and then in the middle is, you know, all of these cards you can purchase. So you're trying to get 40 victory points to win. You've each got your own track, basically. At the bottom where you have your income, you have your actual coins, and then you have your victory points. So you get to 40 victory points, you win the game. Game automatically ends there, but obviously the other tracks are very important as well to keep in mind. And then you have 1 through 12 in these card slots. Everyone has cards they start out with. When you upgrade a ship, if I buy a new one from the ship, I get to put it where the last one was, and then I get to take the other one and tuck it underneath the board, so there's a red effect that I now get on the opposing player's turns. So when on my turn, I would roll the dice, choose, do I want to add them together or split them, and then take that effect, gain those benefits. It may be coins, it may be victory points, it may be something different, income, maybe something completely different, or so that's what you do. You split them or you add them together, and then you get to purchase. So you can purchase one card out from the market, and then once you purchase a card, place your card underneath, and then it's the next person's turn. This is one of the best pieces about this game, is a lot of times when you're playing with more players, like this goes up to 5 players, it's a 2 to 5 player game. A lot of games, if you're playing 2-player, it feels pretty snappy, you're going back and forth. But a 5-player game, you feel like you're kind of sitting waiting for your turn. In this one, every single roll, everyone gets to do something, which is fantastic. So if my wife is rolling the dice and it's her turn, I get to look at those dice and decide, do I want to add those up or split them? And the red effects on the cards are what I get to do on her turn. And so if those cards are tucked, like I was talking earlier, that represents spaceships, I think, being deployed or sent off. And so any red effects that I have out there on that number, I get those on her turn, on anyone else's turn. And then the blue effects are what you get on your turn. And a little more advanced, there are green effects that you get on anyone's turn, which is, again, kind of like Maki Koro. So this is going to have some definite comparisons to that, but it's going to be a little bit deeper, a little bit harder to track in some respects for sure. But I love the fact that you can leave the dice. You have that extra decision-making thing in there, because it seems like every single turn when you roll, you do get something. You just might not get as much as you want. You might not get as good a roll as you want. And it's going to take a little bit before you get a lot of stuff, especially on someone else's roll, because you need to deploy ships before you can get those red effects. But overall, this game scales really well. I feel like as you go throughout and you can see different strategies working different ways. I was like pretty far up because I was concentrating on victory points at the beginning, and my wife came back, and it ended up being a pretty close game because she was working with income and some other things like that. So really fun game to see how that worked out. It is a fast game. It's not a big box or anything like that, and so you can play relatively quickly, especially if it's a lower player count, but fun game. Really enjoyed that. So that is Space Base. Hopefully that gives you a nice little touch and a taste of what this bad boy is, what it does, and why it may or may not be right for you. Thanks.